Drag scene, Natalie, question, scene 1, take 1, marker. Drag scene, Gracie, question, scene 1, take 1, marker.
Why did you volunteer to be a part of this series?
I volunteered to be part of the series because I've been to so many drag shows, I've seen so many drag queens, and I don't know if I have the confidence to fully go out there and be like, I am now officially a drag queen, but I was just like, you know, this would be like a really fun way to just kind of see what it's all about, try it out, and then with like low stakes.
I volunteered to be a part of this series because I've always loved drag. It's always really inspired me. I grew up watching RuPaul's Drag Race with my sister, and it was really fun every week to see the different performances and the costumes and the makeup and the wigs, and I just feel like it's a really cool way to express yourself both as an individual and as an artist, and I just feel like there's so much joy and love and expression there to share with others, and I really just wanted to try it out for myself and see if I could also do it and learn more about the history as well, because I'm not as familiar with the background of drag and how it came to be, so I really want to educate myself there. But I also am just really excited to learn about all of these different aspects, and I just really wanted to try it out.
How would you describe your knowledge of drag currently?
I would describe my knowledge of drag currently as being like more than, I guess, the average person, being that I've seen so many shows and just have that experience. But I would say that I'm still like pretty baby to the deeper ins and outs of it.
I would describe my current knowledge about drag. I feel like what I know so far about drag is mainly that, like I said, it's kind of this form of expression. It can change for individuals. I know a lot of drag queens off by heart from watching RuPaul's Drag Race, but also there's so much more than just the queens on that show and the show itself. So I feel like even though I know quite a bit from maybe more pop culture, there's still so much knowledge I have to gain about it, and that all of that stuff that I'm not familiar with, I hope that I'll become familiar with through this experience.
How do you feel about having to perform on stage in front of an audience?
How I feel about performing on stage in front of an audience. I don't feel like too stressed about it actually, because I'm a theater kid.
I'm feeling excited and nervous to perform on stage in front of an audience. I feel it's a bit of both, because I do love performing. I grew up dancing since I was 3, so I'm pretty familiar with going on stage and performing, and you know, it was always something I really loved to do, and it definitely was a passion of mine. But I remember always being really nervous about it too, because I always wanted to do my best and not disappoint anyone, so I always was really nervous because I didn't want to forget the choreography or mess up a move, and so I think it's a bit of both. It's kind of a combination of the two, but overall I'm mostly excited about it.
What part of this process are you least excited for?
Honestly, I think I'm least excited for the makeup. I don't generally wear makeup in my day-to-day life besides mascara and a lip, so yeah, I think that's probably what I'm looking forward to the least.
I don't really know if there is anything I'm like least excited for, because I'm honestly pretty excited about everything. I think it's not necessarily that I'm least excited, but I think I'm most maybe nervous about the choreography, because again, going back to the last question, it's like I grew up dancing, and so I've always had to pick up choreography really quickly, but also I'm like, I haven't done that for a while now, so I'm a little bit nervous. You know, do I still have that ability? I mean, I hope so, but I think I wouldn't say I'm not looking forward to it, because I am, but I think it's something I'm really nervous about, so yeah.
And then what are you most excited
I am most excited about the persona and the story and the like the pathos of the story I want to tell, and like the melodrama of it. Like I'm just so excited for like the actual like performance of it. Yeah.
I feel like I'm equally excited about everything, but probably the makeup. I feel like I really love makeup and getting to use it as a form of self-expression. I do my makeup like every single day, and I like to play around with the colors and, you know, even like the color of blush I'm using, or eyeshadow and eyeliner and lipstick, and I just like to experiment and have fun. Of course, most days when I go to school or work, I just like to keep it more neutral, but I feel like I love to just play around with it when I'm home. But I don't know, I think the makeup will be interesting because it's very different when you see drag makeup. So I kind of want to learn those techniques and see how it's different from my regular routine. But I'm also really looking forward to the performance itself. I think I'm excited not only just to perform myself, but also to see everyone else's performances. Like also Natalie's performance, and then mine, and then all the amazing queens and kings and things and monarchs that will be there. I just feel like they're so inspiring, so it'll be amazing to be performing on the same stage as.
I am performing to Roy Orbison's song Crying, and my name is Willie Shershot.
And I am Miss B-roll. It's inspired by B-roll in cinema, which is usually additional footage, but here it's about B-E-E, like a bumblebee. So it's a little fun take of it. See?
Okay, so thank you so much for doing this interview. My first question is, how long have you been doing drag?
Drag specifically around 7 years. I was in the cabaret world at that time hosting shows, but mostly hosting burlesque shows, because my wife is a wonderful burlesque performer, and so she said, you know, you'd be funny at this. So I was doing burlesque shows a little bit, and then she was watching an episode of Drag Race, and I was making some jokes, and she's like, "You're so sassy already. Why don't you just become a drag queen?" And I said, "Fine, I will."
Yeah, just my next question is, how did drag then come to be?
Modern drag culture really starts in the 1880s and 1890s, and the transatlantic culture predicated around the idea of vaudeville. The earliest known drag queen, we can say, is William Dorsey Swann, who was a black performer of color. We would now probably say a trans woman, but they earned the title the Queen because they held many balls in around Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. And so because of the lavish parties that they threw and their status within the community, they were given the title Queen as a honorific. The parties would be advertised by saying that attendees should come dressed in their drags, which were long petticoats that were in fashion at the time that would drag on the floor, drag balls. She became the first drag queen. That tradition stayed alive in the East Coast of the United States for decades until eventually William Dorsey Swann gave it up. She moved into retirement after she was incarcerated for being queer, for running these parties. And her brother continued the tradition into the 1940s throughout the pansy craze, which then led to some of the first drag pageants. And then those led to kind of a development of a professional class of drag queens in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and leads to modern drag in that sense. Things that we would consider drag are not just found in North American context. We also see evidence of drag like expressions in Japan with kabuki theater, which initially was actually dominated by women until the bored samurai who didn't have anything to do started fights over the women. So then the women were outlawed in 1629. Then it turned into boys kabuki, like younger teenage men. Then they were outlawed. Then it became men's kabuki. There's the Peking opera, which was quite similar to that, in which many performers in the Peking operas like lived full time as women because they said that to fully do their craft and perform femininity on stage, they also had to do it off stage, which we would now look at as a type of at least gender nonconforming behavior or possibly transness. But within a North American context, it evolves significantly through several key phases. The first one is the silent film era and the vaudeville era. Those two are very intricately linked, wherein a lot of vaudeville performers, like, of course, I'm sure you know of Gilje and Eltinge, the Rocky Twins were very popular at the time. These performers were incredibly popular. Gilje Eltinge, like, he used to make more per film than Charlie Chaplin. Like, he was one of Hollywood's biggest stars. In 1911, he was pulling in checks for like $250,000 a film. He would perform, and then at the end of his shows, he would take off his wig to show the illusion of masculinity performing as femininity. He was always very, tight-lipped about his sexuality. He lived with his mother until she died, and he had a series of failed famous engagements but never seemed to find the right girl. Unfortunately for him, though, his life ends kind of tragically because he was this big Hollywood star, but by the late 1930s, attitudes had changed when the U.S. Hays Code comes in that prohibits the portrayal of positive homosexuality. And so he was reduced to performing and singing in male clothes next to the outfits that he used to wear on stage, because even in his performance career, attitudes have changed so much. There's the pansy craze, of course, in the 1930s, which is a brief-lived moment during Prohibition where what we would look at as drag cabaret performances exploded, including even some cis men who did it. There's also the Harlem Renaissance, which a lot of white narratives often overlook. With people like Gladys Bentley and Ma and Pa Rennie and, kind of very big stars that also kind of get a crackdown during the Lavender Scare as associated with the Red Scare during Joseph McCarthy's era of crackdowns in the early Cold War, because queer people were considered a security risk because they could be blackmailed over information about them being queer. So that led to the Lavender Scare, which was associated with the Red Scare, searching for communists. The 1960s really sees the kind of birth of like professional showgirls. We're talking about pageant culture erupting across the United States. But in England, it always develops in a bit of a different way, especially with the creation of panto culture. Pantomime is huge, especially around Christmas time. And, that was kind of very associated with vaudeville culture over there. And then in the 70s, when kind of a lot of queer people were more in like a stricter gender conforming way, masked for mask was all the rage in gay bars and things like that, we see less drag in the queer world and more in an avant-garde space. So this is the emergence of like John Waters and Divine and Sylvester and the Coquettes and things like that that are designed to provoke a reaction out of people, until we get into the 80s when you start to see kind of, what we would look at as like the origins of modern drag culture, its affiliation with the ballroom scene, which is obviously started and proliferated by Black Latin individuals, particularly in New York City, but in other places too, that spreads across the world. And then in the 90s, it really does start becoming a bit of RuPaul's world, where you start to see celebrity drag performers, and not just RuPaul, but Moby Dick, Club Casanova, for like the drag king scene, the RuPaul show airs where there's literally just a drag queen interviewing people. And then it kind of all really changes with Drag Race when it goes from, a queer subculture to eventually exploding and being a part of mainstream culture in some ways.
What would you say to someone who wanted to become a drag queen or a drag king or a monarch?
Don't worry so much about the makeup. Everyone worries about the look. When they're like, oh, I'm getting into drag and I've got this wig and I've practiced makeup so many times, and they're so focused on the visual element of it, and that doesn't make you a drag queen or king or monarch. That is somebody who's gotten into drag. Because ultimately I kind of feel that like you can do the makeup, you can put a wig on, you can put a dress on, you can go on stage and lip sync to a number, and that makes you somebody who has performed drag. But to be a drag queen or monarch or king, these are people that when you walk in the room, everybody knows. And you have a certain gravitas, you have a certain stature, you have a certain presence. and that's what you need to build and work on, is more or less how do you look, and more think so much more about what are you gonna do. Like, go and be ugly for 6 months. Who cares? You'll get better at makeup. Like, the more you do it, you'll just get better. That's just how it works. But what I think people need to spend more time on is focusing on, like, why am I doing this? Am I just doing it because my friends are doing it and I think it's fun? That's fine. You can totally do that. But do you have something to say?
When people refer to a drag persona, what are they referring to?
It's kind of like, I guess, what the kids would call a brand now, you know? Like, it's kind of what I want people to see me as. So, like, if people know Shane's coming, they can expect facial hair. They can expect different colored contacts. You know, I like to have the different colored eyes and lots of sparkle, you know? So it's kind of that, and then the messages that you portray. Like, I like to do a lot of 80s, so people will, you know, I'm kind of the retro king, like, you know, the kind of the old school kind of guy. They call me the silver fox type thing, but, you know, so it's all dependent on that. So, and that's the beauty of drag, right? It's depending on the show you're doing, you can convey as many messages as you want. You can portray a story that you need to. You can just do something silly and have fun. Like, you know, my partner likes to do dinosaur acts, right? With inflatable dinosaurs. And that's part of it, just, you know, getting up there and having fun. I have a youth drag troupe, and a lot of my performers, especially like from 15 to 19, are really into the clown drag right now. So like a lot of the clown expression and, you know, the different kinds of makeup, and I can see them finding themselves. They refer to themselves as its proudly. And you know, taking back that word that people used against us for so long and giving ownership in it. You know, I find that it's so beautiful. And the same with like myself, you know, taking ownership in my body again and feeling one with who I am, right? So you can see it through so many different kinds of makeups and costumes and how they present their identity through that and finding it. And you can see the joy in their face when they finally discover who they are and how they feel, right, when they're on stage. And it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. My youngest performer is 8.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And my oldest performer is in their 70s. So,
Wow.
yeah. So I have the whole range.
Wow, and that's your whole drag
That's
family?
that's my drag troupe. We call it Drag is for All Ages. So you can look them up too. They do a monthly show, and anybody can come out and try it for one time, and and see out if they like it. And it gives you a place. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. So, what people or ideas inspire your drag persona?
Well, for me, right out of the 80s, you know, Madonna, Prince, George Michael, all big artists in my life, you know, growing up and all that stuff. So watching them be authentic and doing that stuff, like, that encouraged me to take their music and bring it back to life. You know, I'm not the only people that does 80s music, but that is my genre mostly, and I love to do that. And then young male artists as well, so. Depending on what kind of show I'm doing, like I'll present different things. If it's an adult show, of course it's going to be more adult themed. But for like things like Pride and, you know, stuff where you're trying to put out a message, I like to convey things about, you know, acceptance and love and, you know, being authentic, being who you are. I do this one song called Who I Am by Win Starks, and it's about, you know, knowing that you were this little human all along, boy at the time, and growing up to be who you are and being proud of that. So, you know, through Pride, I love to express a lot of those different kinds of, you know, messages to people, things that I needed to see when I was a kid. You know, growing up in the 80s, we didn't get a lot of that. It was not nice.
So, we've been talking about drag personas. What do you think, in your opinion, is the most important part of a drag persona?
Stage presence is huge, because like, bless everybody. Like I say, everybody try drag once at least, but it is not for everybody, right? It just isn't. And it's okay to do a free stage and get up there and have fun, but like if you really want to compete, you really need to look at your stage presence. Am I projecting to the whole audience? Am I engaging everybody, not just people in front of me? It's the same as you would do in a speech class, right? You know, you need to be able to project, although we're not all of us are really singing, for the back of the room, right? Do you make up for the back of the room? All those kind of things need to be done. So it's kind of important to have that. Other than that, like it's all workable. You can improve your dancing, you can improve your makeup, right? But it's those basics that you kind of need to have. And costuming can grow as well, but you do need to have some sort of not just your street clothes type deal, you know? Like I wouldn't show up here in something that I would wear every day. Like I would wear this every day as Shane, but not every day as just me out walking around.
So how do you think that drag impacts people both on a more individual, personal level, but also on a societal level?
Well, it does break down barriers. It can. Like if people are open enough to actually sit down and go to a drag show, some people actually grow and learn. Some people won't because they're there to judge and there to be mean the whole time. That's okay. We're there for the people that want to learn, right? So it's about doing things that are, you know, both on a personal level, educating yourself, right? And educating your friends. But on a societal level, showing them that it's not as scary as we think it is. That's why you see people at Pride bringing their kids. I don't know anything. They come and then they know, they start to learn and they're like, it's not as scary. But a lot of people won't look into it if it doesn't directly affect them, which is unfortunate, right? If you have this feeling towards a community, you'd think you'd at least look into it. But no, they just sooner follow the tropes that have been passed on for years. So people are scared of things they don't understand. And they use fear as a tool to stay that way. They don't look into it themselves. If it doesn't directly affect them, they don't care for the knowledge. They listen to one person's experience, and it might not even be a real experience, but they'll take that experience and they'll run with it. So, you know, it really comes down to fear. And underneath fear, of course, there's a lot of hate. And I don't know if the hate is always directed at the people that they're directing it at. I think a lot of times, especially coming out of COVID, you noticed a lot of the anger afterwards. I think it's just misdirected anger, and what's the next thing that people are talking about, right? So they'll throw it on that. You know, it happens a lot, especially to the queer community.
So if you had to give one or two kind of key pieces of advice to aspiring drag performers, what would you say?
Well, find your persona and don't give up. Like, don't let anybody tell you that what you're doing isn't it. Just keep doing it. And if you do it online, like there's so many different avenues to do it now. You don't have to do it the old way that we all did it. And you know, like when I came into the drag scene, there was a lot of, you gotta do this, you gotta wear this, you gotta look like this, right? And that's only 7 years ago. So, you know, to watch it grow since then and be more open to different things. Like used to know drag queens who would just absolutely be livid if there was another queen who didn't wear heels. And I'm sorry, that doesn't apply for everything because not everybody has the ability to wear heels, whether it's physical or can dance in them or, you know, and there's lots of beautiful shoes that don't have heels. So it's come a long way in those respects. So I suggest just know your persona and don't give up. Keep trying, find where you fit, which, you know, type shows you fit in, but you're always welcome in the community for sure.